Hey guys, so we're going to go over one of the examples. Actually, the first example you see in section, I believe it's 504, using double angle formulas to solve for trig equations. So um, we have solved sine of 2x minus sine of x equals 0 from 0 to 2 pi. So this states that you're just solving within one unit circle, so you don't have to add 2 pi n to your answer. Also note that this is from 0 to 2 pi, so that means your answer will be in radians. You are solving for x, which are angles. So since this is given in radians, your answer will be in radians. Anytime you have more than one trig function, you're going to work on applying the formulas. So sine of 2x is a double angle formula. The formula for it is going to be sine of 2x cosine x. And I'm going to bring everything else down, which is minus sine of x equals 0. And just like we did in section 502, if you want to take this from an algebra perspective when solving a trig equation, you can just change the trig function to variables. So for instance, I'm going to take a sidebar here. I could change sine of x into just x and cosine of x into just y. So I can rewrite this as 2 instead of sine times cosine, it'll say xy. Minus, instead of sine, it'll just say x. Now, we're going to solve, but one thing I want to note is that you want the other side to equal 0 when you're solving. Don't move the x to the other side and try to divide out, because anytime you divide out when you're solving trig equations, you're actually dividing out one of the answers. So leave it as it is. The other side of the equal sign will stay 0. If you look at the two terms, terms are separated by plus and minus sign. So if you look at these two terms separated by the minus sign, you do have a GCF. Your goal is to try to factor and make the other side 0 so we can apply 0 product property. So if you look at the two terms, they do have x in common. I'm going to factor that out as the GCF. If I factor that out, meaning divide it out of each term, 2xy, if I divide the x out, that'll be just 2y. I'll bring down the minus sign, and then if I factor x out of x, factoring out means dividing. X divided by x is just like saying 2 divided by 2. You're dividing the same thing, and that's just going to give you 1. And if you're ever worried about your factoring, you can always distribute. Distribute the x back in. It should bring you right back to that previous line if your factoring is correct. So if it's factored and the other side is 0, we can use what's called 0 product property, which means we set each of the factors equal to 0. So we get x equals 0 and 2y minus 1 equals to 0. So x equals to 0, the variable is already by itself. To isolate the variable here, I'm going to get rid of the minus 1 by adding 1 on both sides. I'll get 2y equals 1, and then divide both sides by 2, y equals to 1/2. So mind you, you are not done yet. Remember, you changed the trig functions into variables. So since now you're done solving, change them back. So you're going to change the x back into sine of x equals 0. And you're going to change the y back into cosine of x. So just like when you're verifying, it's a dance between trig and algebra. And then finally, when you're solving at the end, when the trig function is by itself, it's time to apply the unit circle. So make sure you go over the unit circle videos just to catch on to the patterns and make the work a little quicker so you're not constantly looking around the unit circle. There are patterns to it. So for this, you're solving for x, which is the angle. So you're looking for where sine is equal to 0. You're looking for the angle where sine is 0. And if you look on the unit circle, do not look in the quadrants. Inside the quadrants, 1, 2, 3, and 4, sine are fractions, as are cosine. The only time they're not fractions are when they're on the quadrantals, which are the vertical and horizontal axis. So make sure you go over the patterns of the unit circle videos. So sine is equal to 0 at 0 radians. and at pi. Remember, sine is the y value in the parentheses. So we have the angle here, we solved for x, and then same thing here for cosine equals 1/2. This is a fraction, you should be able to find them inside of the quadrants. It's positive 1/2, so remember cosine is positive in quadrant 1 and 4, so make sure you review your unit circle. And if you look at the patterns again on the unit circle, cosine equals to 1/2 for any radian angle is over 3. Notice pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, 5 pi over 3, which are all by the vertical axis. Cosine is 1/2. The signs may be different depending on the quadrant you're in, but anything over 3, cosine's 1/2, sine is square root of 3 over 2, tangent is square root of 3. So get to know those patterns. Review the videos if you need to. And then cosine equals to 1/2, positive 1/2 at pi over 3, and 5 pi over 3. So these are your 4 answers. And I hope this helps.